Hello, hello, hello. Sorry for the delay. I apologize. Internet issues over here. But I'm live, and if you're unable to watch it live, you can watch it later today. Today, I'll be reading one chapter. I'll be reading chapter 14, which is The Triumph of the Witch, just to kind of give you guys a heads up of what this week looks like, our last week of instruction. I decided I'm going to read one chapter a day. So today, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right after I finish the Thursday chapter, I'm going to send you guys the link for the forms test for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So right after I finish reading on Thursday, we'll go right into the test right afterwards, multiple choice forms. Tomorrow, I will be doing double Zoom with both classes. My class, Social Studies Zoom at 1 o'clock. Ms. Nogdave's class, Social Studies Zoom at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Right after I record this, I will be recording lesson 2, chapter 8 in social studies. So sometime today, you guys need to listen to the lesson and do your questions in your packet. And then tomorrow we'll do live together lesson 3. So once again, give me about an hour after I'm done reading this chapter. I'm going to record the lesson on social studies, chapter 8, lesson 2. You need to watch that, do the questions in your packet. And then tomorrow we will do a live Zoom with chapter 8, lesson 3. And then the test for both classes will be on Friday. So test on Thursday for Language in the Wardrobe. Right after we finish the last chapter, I'll send you the link. Go ahead and take it. And then Friday, anytime throughout the day, you can take your social studies test. And then we will do one final Kahoot on Friday as well. Other than that, nothing's going on. Also, my class, we have a fun Flipgrid this week. We are doing Teach the Teacher. You're basically going to have no more than 2.5 minutes, which is not long, to teach on something that you're super interested in. So it might be soccer, it might be video games, whatever. You're going to teach the class about your things. You might want to think about, like, what pictures can you hold up? How can you make it really interesting for people who know nothing about it? Think about Ms. Cummins knows nothing about video games. So if you're going to break it down on how to play a certain game or certain tricks, you want to organize yourself ahead of time. Like maybe have a little kind of cheat sheet of things that you want to go over during your presentation. They're going to post it on Flipgrid. And this is the one and only time that I open the comments for kids to write something. And the only thing that you're allowed to write is something cool that you learned, something you thought was interesting, or something that you really liked. That's it. We're not making suggestions on how to make it better or saying anything negative. All we're doing is saying positive comments about everybody's presentation. So I know you guys will do a great job of following those rules. And it's really fun to go back and look and see what people thought was interesting about your presentation. People in the past have taught people skills too, like cup stacking, how to do that, or flip bottle, whatever it is. Just have fun with it and decide on, try to think of maybe something that maybe you don't think anybody else might come up with. And it's really important to stay focused on one specific topic. So if you're going to do video games, don't do all the video games in the world. You might want to focus on one video game that's school appropriate, right? Or if you're going to do sports, don't do all the sports. Pick one thing, pick soccer, and pick, a couple things that you want to talk about with soccer. That applies to my class only. Ms. Nogdave's class, you guys are doing something similar or not really sure. But yeah, all right, so here we go. Chapter 14, The Triumph of the Witch. As soon as the witch had gone, Aslan said, "We must move from this place at once. It will be wanted for other purposes. We shall encamp tonight at the fords of Baruna." Of course, everyone was dying to ask him how he had arranged matters with the witch, but his face was stern and everyone's ears were still ringing with the sound of his roar, so nobody dared ask. After a meal, which was taken in the open air on the hilltop, for the sun had gotten strong by now, and dried the grass, they were busy for a while, taking the pavilion down and packing things up. Before 2 o'clock, they were on the march and set off in a northeasterly direction, walking at an easy pace, for they had not far to go. During the first part of the journey, Aslan explained to Peter his plan of campaign. "As soon as she has finished her business in these parts," he said, "the witch and her crew will almost certainly fall back to her house and prepare for a siege. You may or not be able to cut her off and prevent her from reaching it." He then went on to outline 2 plans of battle, one for fighting the witch and her people in the wood, and another for assaulting her castle. And all the time he was advising Peter how to conduct the operation, saying things like, "You must put your centaurs in such and such place, and you must post scouts to see that she doesn't do so and so," till at last Peter said, "But You will be there yourself, won't you, Aslan? I can give you no promise of that, answered the lion, and he continued giving Peter his instructions. For the last part of the journey, it was Susan and Lucy who saw most of him. He did not talk very much and seemed to be actually very sad. It was still afternoon when they came down to a place where the river valley had widened out and the river was broad and shallow. This was the fords of Baruna, and Aslan gave orders to halt on this side of the water. But Peter said, wouldn't it be better to camp on the far side for fear she should try a night attack or anything like that? Aslan, who seemed to have been thinking about something else, roused himself with a shake of his magnificent mane and said, what's that? Peter said it all over again. No, said Aslan in a dull voice, as if it didn't matter. No, she will not make an attack tonight. And then he sighed deeply. But presently he added, all the same, it was well thought of. That is how a soldier ought to think, but it doesn't really matter. So they proceeded to pitch their camp. Aslan's mood affected everyone that evening. Peter was feeling uncomfortable, too, at the idea of fighting the battle on his own. The news that Aslan might not be there had come as a great shock to him. Supper that evening was a quiet meal. Everyone felt how different it had been last night, or even that morning. It was as if the good times, having just begun, were already drawing to the end. This feeling affected Susan so much that she couldn't get to sleep when she went to bed. And after she had lain counting sheep and turning over and over, she heard Lucy give a long sigh and turn over just beside her in the darkness. Can't you get to sleep either? Said Susan. No, said Lucy. I thought you were asleep. I say, Susan. What? I have a most horrible feeling, as if something was hanging over us. Have you? Because as a matter of fact, so have I. Something about Aslan, said Lucy. Either some dreadful thing is going to happen to him or something dreadful that he's going to do. There's been something wrong with him all afternoon, said Susan. Lucy, what was that he said about not being with us at the battle? You don't think he'd be stealing away and leaving us tonight, do you? Where is he now, said Lucy. Is he here in the pavilion? I don't think so. Susan, let's go outside and have a look around. We might see him. All right, let's, said Susan. We might just as well be doing that as lying awake here. Very quietly, the two girls groped their way among the other sleepers and crept out of the tent. The moonlight was bright and everything was quite still except for the noise of the river chattering over the stones. Then Susan suddenly caught Lucy's arm and said, Look, on the far side of the camping ground, just where the trees began. They saw the lion slowly walking away from them into the wood. Without a word, they both followed behind him. He led them up the steep slope out of the river valley and then slightly to the right, apparently by the very same route which they had used that afternoon in coming from the hill of the stone table. On and on he led them, into dark shadows and onto the pale moonlight, getting their feet wet with the heavy dew. He looked somehow different from the Aslan that they knew. His tail and his head hung low, and he walked slowly as if he were very, very tired. Then, when they were crossing a wide open place where there were no shadows for them to hide in, he stopped and he looked around. It was no good trying to run away, so they came toward him. And when they were closer, he said, Oh, children, why are you following me? We couldn't sleep, said Lucy, and then felt sure that she need say no more and that Aslan knew all that he had been thinking. Please, may we come with you wherever you're going? Asked Susan. Well, said Aslan, and seemed to be thinking. And then he said, I should be glad of company tonight. Yes, you may come, if you will promise to stop when I tell you to do so. And after that, leave me to go on alone. Oh, thank you, we will, said the two girls. Forward they went again, and one of the girls walked on each side of the lion, but how slowly he walked, and his great royal head drooped so that his nose nearly touched the grass. Presently he stumbled, and then he gave a low moan. Aslan, dear Aslan, said Lucy, what is the matter? Can't you tell us? Are you ill, dear Aslan? Asked Susan. No, I am sad and I am lonely. Lay your hands on my mane so that I can feel you are there, and let us walk like that. And so the girls did that they would never have dared to do without his permission, but what they had longed to do ever since they first saw him. They buried their cold hands in the beautiful sea of fur, and they stroked it, and in so doing walked with him. And presently they saw that they were going with him up the slope of a hill on which the stone table stood. They went up at the side where the trees came furthest up, and when they got to the last tree, it was the one that had some bushes about it, Aslan stopped and said, Children, here you must stop, and whatever happens, do not let yourselves be seen. Farewell. So both the girls cried bitterly, though they hardly knew why, and they clung to the lion, and they kissed his mane and his nose and his paws and his great sad eyes. Then he turned from them and he walked out into the top of the hill. And Lucy and Susan, crouching in the bushes, looked after him, and this is what they saw. A great crowd of people were standing all around the stone table, and though the moon was shining, many of them carried torches which burned with evil-looking red flames and black smoke. But such people, ogres with monstrous teeth and wolves and bull-headed men, spirits of evil trees and poisonous plants and other creatures whom I won't describe, because if I did, the grown-ups would probably not let you read this book. Cruels, hags, incubuses, wraths, whores, efreets, sprites, orkneys, wooses, and etnins. In fact, there were all of those who were on the witch's side and whom the wolf had summoned at her command. And right in the middle, standing by the table, was the witch herself. A howl and a gibber of dismay went up from the creatures, and when they first saw the great lion pacing toward them, and for a moment, even the witch herself seemed to be struck with fear. Then she recovered herself and gave a wild, fierce laugh. "The fool!" she cried. "The fool has come. Bind him fast." Lucy and Susan held their breaths, waiting for Aslan's roar and his spring upon his enemies, but it never came. 4 hags, grinning and leering, yet also at first hanging back and half afraid of what they had to do, had approached him. "Bind him, I say," repeated the White Witch. The hags made a dart at him and shrieked with triumph when they found that he made no resistance at all. Then others, evil dwarfs and apes, rushed in to help them, and between them they rolled. Ooh, this picture is scary. All the bad people all gathered around Aslan and poking at him and spitting on him. Over his back and tied all of his 4 paws together, shouting and cheering as if they had done something brave, though had the lion chosen, one of those paws could have been the death of them all. But he made no noise, even when the enemy, straining and tugging, pulled the cords so tight that they actually cut into his flesh. Then they began to drag him towards the stone table. "Stop," said the witch. "Let him first be shaved." So now she wants to humiliate him and just, make him look like a rat and shave off all of his great hair. Another roar of mean laughter went up from her followers as an ogre with a pair of shears came forward and squatted down by Aslan's head. Snip, snip, snip went the shears, and masses of curling gold began to fall to the ground. Then the ogre stood back, and the children, watching from their hiding place, could see the face of Aslan looking all small and different without its mane. The enemies also saw the great difference. "Why, he's only a great cat after all," cried one. "Is that what we were afraid of?" said another. And they surged around Aslan, jeering at him, saying things like, "Puss, puss, poor little pussy. How many mice have you caught today, cat? Would you like a saucer of milk, little pussums?" "How can they?" said Lucy, tears streaming down her cheeks. The brutes, all of them." For now that the first shock was over, the shorn face of Aslan looked to her braver and actually more beautiful and more patient than ever. "Muzzle him." So put something over his face. "Muzzle him," said the witch, and even now as they worked about his face, putting on the muzzle, one bite from his jaws would have cost 2 or 3 of them their hands. But he never moved, and this seemed to enrage all the rabble. Everyone was at him now. Those who had been afraid to come near him, even after he was bound, began to find their courage, and for a few minutes the 2 girls could not even see him. So thickly was he surrounded by the whole crowd of creatures, kicking at him, hitting him, spitting on him, jeering at him. At last the rabble had enough of this. They began to drag the bound and muzzled lion to the stone table, some pulling, some pushing. He was so huge that even when they got him there, it took all their efforts to hoist him up onto the surface of it. Then there was more tying and more tightening of cords. "The cowards! The cowards!" sobbed Susan. "And they're still afraid of him, even now." When once Aslan had been tied, and tied so that he really had a big mass of cords on the flat stone, a hush fell over the crowd. 4 hags holding 4 torches stood at the corners of the table, and the witch bared her arms as she had bared them the previous night when she had been with Edmund instead of Aslan. Then she began to whet her knife. She started sharpening the knife. It looked to the children, with the gleam of the torchlight fell on it, as if the knife were made out of stone, not out of steel, and it was of a strange and evil-looking shape. At last she drew near. She stood by Aslan's head. Her face was working and twitching with passion, but his looked straight up at the sky, still quiet, neither angry nor afraid, but a little bit sad. Then just before she gave the blow, she stooped down and said in a quivering voice, "And now who has won? Fool! Did you think that by all this you would save the human traitor? Now I will kill you instead of him, as our pact was, and so the deep magic will be appeased. But when you are dead, what will prevent me from killing all of them? And who will take him out of my hand then, Mr. Aslan? Understand that you have given me Narnia forever. You have lost your own life, and you have not saved his. In that knowledge, despair and die. The children did not see the actual moment of the killing. They couldn't bear to look, and they had to cover their eyes. She's so mean. So she has him on the stone table. Before she strikes her knife, she just tells him, by the way, you've given up your life for nothing, because I'm going to kill all of them anyway, and I'm going to reign over Narnia forever. And I want you to know that, which is really mean, right? All right, guys, you know what to do. You're going to jump inside here. You're going to do 3 vocabulary words, answer your questions. Probably a really good answer question today about maybe how you would have felt if you were Lucy and Susan over in the bushes, or maybe why is Aslan not fighting back? They keep saying like he's super strong and he could go through the cords if he wanted to, but he doesn't. Give me about an hour or so and I will record chapter 8, lesson 2. Remember, you need to watch it today. Answer the questions on your own so that you're ready to go for tomorrow's lesson on lesson 3. Have a great day. Bye.